Hey everyone, Geophysicist Stefan Burns here. We just had our first big earthquake in a week, a magnitude 6.3 that struck Chile, felt by thousands. And this follows after a sequence of energetic space weather events, each one building off of the last, almost like a domino effect. And well, the first earthquake that we should expect from the sequence has occurred. And so you notice on the Earth facing side of the sun right here, a very large coronal hole. This is the outermost atmosphere of the sun being devoid of plasma, showing up black as a result because that effectively has been shot off into space, creating a high-speed stream of solar wind. And this magnetic field that's carried by that plasma connects to Earth's magnetic field. So we just had that initial high density impact come in at the front. Now we're in the low density, high velocity part of that solar wind structure. So that came in, triggered a 3-hour G1 geomagnetic storm. We're looking at more active geomagnetic flux now here on our planet because we're embedded in that high speed stream. As this was occurring, we had our first notable solar flares in at least a week, if not like 10 days or so. An M-class flare, 1.1 M-class flare blasted off today. Those light photons hit Earth in 8.3 minutes, immediately charge up the ionosphere and get the global electric circuit moving a little bit more in terms of energy flow around the planet. And then, well, after that occurred, that G1 geomagnetic storm, the solar flares, and right as we went into the low density solar wind structure, boom shakalaka, magnitude 6.3 earthquake, Chile in a strong subduction zone. The antipode for that is approximately China, Taiwan, that region of the world. So that's also an area to look. Now you'll notice another thing occur here. This was again before the magnitude 6.3, just showing in general energy volatility with the sun right now, is watch this massive plasma filament blast off. That was a big plasma filament. There's clearly a lot that is happening. A lot of cards are starting to fall. 6.3 earthquake now following up after this most recent space weather sequence. And there is a larger, wider transequatorial coronal hole following up behind this one, which we should expect to connect to in about 7 to 8 days. So we're now in this time period leading up to equinox that could be quite dynamic, and we're already seeing that unfold at this moment in time. Here we see the epicenter of this magnitude 6.3. So you see the strong subduction zone there. This occurring just in the past few hours, reporting on this about 2-3 hours after it occurred. Also want to mention that we've been having an eruption here at Reunion Island, Piton de la Fournaise. This is now getting close to reaching the ocean. So it's cut across one of the coastal roads there. This is quite significant. We can look at it right here. This is not a small eruption, folks. You see it crossing the road right there, but this has been flowing down the slopes for quite some time now. And I just find this very interesting because A, it's a significant volcanic eruption. This is a very active shield volcano. Similar to Hawaii, you see how low viscosity the lava is. So it's able to flow vast distances. This really pushing out across now areas where there are people and you can't use that road anymore. It's very likely going to reach the ocean. Well, we had that occur, and we are having that occur. And well, just again, a few days before this, we had Kilauea put on an absolutely epic eruption. This is episode 43 at Kilauea. You see the date there. That's the 10th of March. And so we have two of the big shield volcanoes on this planet being very, very active at this moment in time. And now we've had this magnitude 6.3 earthquake. That is quite a strong earthquake. And we're seeing activity in some areas that is quite notable. So beyond that, so if we go to our USGS latest earthquakes, we can see this magnitude 6.3 right there. Strongest earthquake within the past 24 hours. Also strongest earthquake for the past week, as you can see. So this is quite a big earthquake. We also see a lot of activity here across the southern Europe and like the Mediterranean region going into Turkey. So here's the magnitude 6 that struck Italy. We have 2 magnitude 5 plus earthquakes there for Greece. We just had a 5.2 strike there. Turkey earlier today 5.3 actually, earlier this morning. Also some magnitude 5 earthquakes, I think a 5 and then a magnitude 4 here. That's a magnitude 5.1, a magnitude 4.3, 5.1, 4.3 across Turkey. So this entire area has been quite active. And on the flip side, if we go to the rough antipode for that location, we see we've been having quite a lot of earthquake activity here in the Kermadec Trench. So this is the area to watch. The fact that we're having back and forth activity. These are magnitude 5s, but we also have magnitude 4s and 3s that have been rupturing here. So dozens and dozens of earthquakes. These are just the strongest that are showing up with the global USGS latest earthquakes database. So quite a lot of activity, but let's break down exactly what has happened over the past 24 hours or so, because this magnitude 6.3 is such a perfect example of how space weather influences the geophysical conditions here on Earth. So the exact time of that magnitude 6.3 was 1339 universal time, all right? And so here we have our real-time solar wind, and we see this solar wind structure come in. This is the magnetic field strength going up. That black line, we see we had this nice connection with that solar wind structure with the red line going down into a negative value. That's the BZ component. We have a positive magnetic field here on Earth. When this goes negative, the two connect nicely. We see our solar wind velocity here was around 400 kilometers per second. See where it is now? It's immediately ramped up to about 600 kilometers per second. That's a high-speed stream. Temperature went up. Plasma density originally went up, going to about 15, even higher than that, particles per cubic centimeter, and then plummeting down into this very low density structure. And so you see, okay, here is the geomagnetic volatility. It started to ramp up. Here's our G1 storm. That's going from 9 to 12 universal time. So 9 all the way to 12 universal time, okay? Solar wind is increasing. We get the density to drop. Look at the time there. It's 12:30. And then at 1338 is when that magnitude 6.3 ruptured. And it takes about 40 to 60 minutes for what we observe with our probe in space that's picking this up to actually reach Earth. So exactly when that dropped, the solar wind density, and as this is going on and exactly after this G1 storm, boom, we get that magnitude 6.3 earthquake. So that is a really clear progression of you get the solar wind structure to come in, you start to get magnetic volatility across the Earth. The moment the solar wind density drops, like you get this compression around the Earth and then you get it to relax, you imagine that's acting on the plates of the Earth to some degree. You get a big earthquake in a subduction zone, magnitude 6.3, and Chile is home to the largest earthquake on record, magnitude 9.5, 1960. Okay, so I just described an entire space weather and earthquake sequence that just unfolded, and well, there's more to it than that. Check out this massive plasma filament that launches from the Sun Earth Center just at the turn of the 13th today. So in the past 24 hours, right there, boom shakalaka, huge plasma filament launching outwards. This is not on the far side. This is not from like the limb of the sun. This is right on the Earth facing side. It is going to the south of the Earth. Some of it in the next few days may actually pass along the ecliptic plane, graze us, and increase geomagnetic volatility a little bit, create some solar wind turbulence. But in general, it looks like most of that is just going to be passing to the south of the Earth. But this just illustrates in general that sometimes there are these periods where we see just more activity from the sun, and at the same time, within that window, we see more activity from the Earth. So that plasma filament being great evidence of that. And we've also just had some powerful solar flares. So our first M-class flare in quite some time, because sunspot numbers have been low, activity has been very, very low. Here we see our sun for about the past 36 hours, And you notice new sunspots rotating in. We see sunspots here rotating out. This is where they have been flaring. So we're actually not getting the full strength of them because they're flaring on the sides, being partially eclipsed by the sun. But 1.1 M-class flare being the biggest solar flare of that sequence yet. And that just means that those light photons hitting Earth 8.3 minutes after the flare charge up the ionosphere, charge up the global electric circuit, and in general, that just drives the flow of energy across our planet. So you have that happen exactly with a geomagnetic storm and this plasma filament. Then you get the biggest earthquake in more than a week, and well, you see how everything's connected together in time, and the timing really is perfect. Here we can look at our record of X-ray flux, measuring these solar flares, their intensity. And we see this one right there, the M1.1, occurring right at about 9:55. I zoomed in on it earlier. It's about 9:55 universal time. We also see this one nearly an M-class flare. It's like an 8.1 C-class flare at 15:15. But look at how it's been ramping up. And we had that magnitude 6.3 earthquake occur right there. So really just a beautiful demonstration of the connection between these things and how the space environment can affect the Earth geophysical energetic environment. And well, we likely have more of this to come as we have more space weather coming in and as we approach equinox, when there is a stronger connection between space weather and Earth's magnetic field, driving stronger ejections of plasma into the plasmasphere and more geomagnetic volatility and more. And that really ramps up into April, when we have some pretty critical planetary geometry from around the 17th to the 23rd of April. But really centered on 420. So a lot happening now as we approach equinox. We have that sun diving comet on April 4th. That sun grazer may be a sun diver. We'll find out. Regardless, that is going to be coming in quickly early April, and then we move into some critical planetary geometry later in the month. So things are ramping up. As you can tell, this may just be the beginning of this wave, but a magnitude 6.3 earthquake is no joke. So that is it for today. Thank you all so much for watching. I've been your host, Stefan Burns. Please smash that thumbs up button to help the channel grow. Subscribe to stay up to date on everything that's happening with our sun, with our space environment, our planets, our Earth, our cosmos, and more. Present videos almost daily here on this channel and also on my new Clips channel. Make sure you subscribe to that. That's at Stefan Burns Clip, linked in the video description. Also, I have a website where I sell merchandise and holistic wellness products made by me and my dad. So if you'd like to check that out, that's earthevolution.com/store. We have a bunch of amazing products like herb coffee, tranquility, spirituality. So I recommend you give that a look. Shipping USA only, and that includes the merchandise as well. But I know if you go there, check it out, you will love it. So thank you all so much. Wishing each and every single one of you well. Please have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next video.